channel. This is my first video. My name is Josh and this is Josh Cooks For You. Today we're going to be doing something super simple, which is just a pancake recipe that I've adapted from a box version all the way from finding one online that I thought was really good to now where I am today, which is just fine-tuning everything and making it to where it's something that I really enjoy making and I enjoy eating. I probably make this once or twice a month, if not more, especially if I have guests over. Pancakes are something that is really obviously good to have for a bunch of people because the batter in the recipes generally yield 10 to 12, depending on how much obviously that you're using. Today, the recipe that I'll be using will probably yield 10 small to medium-sized pancakes. All right, so the ingredients that you're going to need for this recipe is 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 3.5 teaspoons of baking powder, a half teaspoon of salt, 1 1/4 cups of buttermilk, and I'll show you how to make the buttermilk. It's super easy, it's just 2 steps. So I use 2 egg whites for this recipe, and I'll show you why in a minute. I like to whip it up, that way the pancakes are nice and fluffy. It also helps with the baking powder, but you'll see in a minute. And then you'll also need 3 tablespoons of melted butter. So the first thing that we're going to do is make the buttermilk. If you have buttermilk on hand, obviously use that. This is just a great alternative because you generally have whole milk and then some sort of like lemon or vinegar product in your cupboard. So it's really easy to make, and then it saves you from purchasing a giant container of buttermilk because buttermilk is generally used in baking only. So if you don't do a lot of baking, then it's just gonna go to waste. So what you're going to need is 1 1/4 cups of actual whole milk, and then the rule of thumb is 1 tablespoon per 1 cup of milk. So since this is 1 1/4 cups of milk, you'll be doing 1 full tablespoon and then half of a teaspoon or something like that. It doesn't have to be exact, it's just gonna all curdle the same, and obviously the more lemon you put in, the more sour it's going to get. All right, so once you've added the actual lemon, you're just gonna mix it up like this, and then you'll set it off to the side while you're making the rest of your actual pancake batter. And by the time that it's done, this will have curdled or actually thickened a little bit and then create kind of that consistency and flavor of buttermilk. All right, now we're on to mixing the dry ingredients. So you're gonna need 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour or any sort of other supplemental flour. You could use gluten-free. I'm gonna be using a sifter. This is not necessary in order to make these, but it does make it a little bit fluffier, and so you also guarantee that all of your lumps from the flour will be kind of cut out of the situation. So we're gonna mix all of that together. Now onto the 1/2 cup. All right, now we're on to the baking powder. You'll need 3.5 teaspoons of this. You don't actually need to sift this in, so I'm just gonna add it to the sifted flour. All right, next we're gonna be adding half a teaspoon of salt. The salt just brings out a lot of the flavors and it makes it a little bit more savory. All right, now I'm gonna grab my sifter again and 1/4 cup of sugar and add that also to the flour and dry ingredients. All right, now that you have all the dry ingredients in the bowl, you're just gonna fold this all together and then set it to the side. Make sure everything is fully incorporated so that way when you add your wet ingredients, it's gonna mix really, really nicely and you're not gonna overmix it. All right, now all the dry ingredients have been incorporated, so I'm gonna set this off to the side and I'm gonna show you why we need 2 egg whites instead of 1 whole egg. Again, you can skip this step and just do 1 whole egg together and it'll be just as good. This will just add a little bit more fluff and air to the actual pancake. Now we have both of our eggs, we're gonna crack them into a bowl very carefully because if you even cut a little bit of the egg yolk and it mixes with the egg white, your eggs won't whip correctly. So make sure that you break it in very, very slowly, and that way you can easily take it out and your eggs are gonna whip correctly. I did it before where there was just a little bit of egg yolk in my egg white and it did not whip at all. There are multiple ways to separate your egg yolk from your egg white. My favorite way to do this is with my bare hands. It's kind of a little gross and it feels weird, but if you use something else like a lid, or like some people use bottles, other methods, it's not a sure tell way and you usually have a little bit of the egg yolk left behind. So this just makes sure that you're actually separating it correctly and you don't have to worry about any of your egg yolk getting incorporated with your egg white. All right, so now we're gonna actually crack them into the bowl, and then I'll show you how to take the egg yolk out really, really easily. All right, first one down. Okay, so you wanna make sure that your hands are very clean. I just washed mine. And you're going to put it into the bowl and kind of just scoop out the egg yolk right here, and then you're just gonna toss it back and forth between your hands until all of the egg white has gone into the bowl. So I have an extra bowl that has nothing in it, and I'm gonna throw the egg yolk into this. I add this egg yolk to scrambled eggs, so that way it adds a little more color and flavor to that. Okay, just scoop it out and push it back and forth between your hands. Let the egg white fall into the bowl. All right, set that off to the side. Wash your hands really quick and grab your hand mixer. Now on to whipping our egg whites. So we have our mixer right here, we have the bowl, and we're going to mix this together for about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how long it needs to take. This also depends on what speed you're using. I use a medium to high speed. And you know that the egg whites are done being whipped when there are stiff peaks that form at the very end. I'll obviously be showing you how that works and what you need to be looking for. And here we go. Okay, so I just wanted to stop this really quickly so you could see that this isn't quite done yet. We need to keep whipping it a little bit more, and then you'll see that the peaks will be a little bit more firm. Right now they're very soft. So we're gonna give it a few more seconds, probably about 30 seconds to a minute more, and then it should be done and fully whipped. Let's see if this is finished now. Okay, so I don't know if you're seeing this, but when you lift up, it forms pretty stiff peaks. So I think we are good to go. All right, just shake off the little beaters so that way you get all of your egg whites. All right, so the next step that we're gonna do is pop the butter into the microwave. We're gonna do this probably at 30 seconds, maybe a little less. Just keep an eye on it so that way it doesn't get overheated. And after that, we're going to mix everything together, and I'll show you how to do that because it's not just going to be mixing all at once, it's going to be more of a folding process. So that way we keep all of that air that we've fluffed into the egg whites into the actual mixture. All right, so now we are on to our final steps. We have our buttermilk that has been curdling over this whole time that we've been making the rest of the dry and wet ingredients. And we have our melted butter right here. The last thing that we're gonna do is add the melted butter and some vanilla extract or vanilla, imitation vanilla, whatever you have, into the buttermilk and mix it together. So I'm going to be adding 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract to the buttermilk along with the butter itself. All right, now we're adding the butter to the milk. And we're just gonna mix this to combine. The butter and the milk, because it was curdling, is gonna separate a little bit, and that's all right. You're just gonna wanna combine it as much as you can before we're adding it to the dry ingredients. Okay, now on to our final steps. We have our dry ingredients in front of us, along with the milk kind of concoction that we made. This is the buttermilk that we created with the milk and lemon juice, the vanilla extract, and also the melted butter. So we're gonna add this to the dry ingredients in front of us, and we're just gonna kind of fold it together. This just needs to be fully mixed before, I don't think you can really overmix it. I mean, don't go crazy, but you want it to just be fully incorporated before we add the egg whites that we fluffed. You can literally use any form of mixing. I'm just using a wooden kind of spatula because my whisk hasn't come in the mail yet. Okay, now that that has been fully incorporated together, we got our egg whites right here, and we're just gonna add this back to the mixture, and we're going to fluff it so it's more of a like fold. So you wanna put the egg white on top, and then you're gonna fold the actual batter over top, so that way you're not just flattening all of the air from the egg whites that you've added. And we're just gonna fold this very, very lightly. You're not gonna press super firm, and you just wanna incorporate this to the very bare minimum. You don't wanna over incorporate because then you're losing all that extra fluff that you added. Alright, so here's our final batter mixture. It's very fluffy and I'm really excited with how this is looking. So we're gonna get a pan on the stove and we're gonna melt some butter in it, and then we can kind of discuss like what kind of ingredients that you can add on top of this. I'm just gonna have plain pancakes because I have some of my frozen fruit defrosting that I have in the freezer. So I'm just gonna add that over top of my plain pancakes. You can cut up bananas, you can cut up blueberries, you can cut up strawberries, and just kind of sprinkle those into the actual mixture as it's cooking, and then it kind of adds an extra level of sweetness. I prefer to add that afterwards so that way I can just add a little bit more or less depending on what the flavor of the actual pancake is. You can't really tell until one is done, so if you add a bunch of like strawberries or something and it over sweetens the pancake, it's not going to be as like savory and sweet together. It's just going to be very, very sweet and hard on your palate. Alright, now that we have all of our pancakes completely cooked, this is actually one of the more fun parts. We get to construct kind of our tower of pancakes. So what I usually do is take a bag of the medley fruit that you can buy at the store. Mine has blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, and strawberries. So I defrosted that while I was cooking everything and it's fully done. So I'm gonna take one pancake, put a little layer of this fruit medley that has defrosted on top, then add some syrup, then kind of make a stack of pancakes kind of with this sandwich idea. So I'm gonna work on that right now, and then you can see as I'm doing that. Layer of fruit, then you'll take your syrup and you'll just do a nice little layer of that. We're gonna add another slap of the fruit. This one's kind of your decorative one, so just, you know, pay attention to how you're doing that. Okay, and then with this, I'm gonna top it again with some more syrup and then some powdered sugar, which is totally optional. I just like the way that it looks and it makes the whole kind of thing look much more fancy. So I'm gonna add another layer of my syrup. We really like to go hard on the syrup. You can obviously go a lot less if you want to. Since this is more of a savory thing because you use the buttermilk, you can add a little bit more sugar and then it adds just a new element to that. It definitely develops the flavor overall, and the nice little hints of fruit add another extra like tartness to it. So you have like your savory from the actual cake, the tartness from the fruit, and then you have the sweetness from the powdered sugar and the syrup. So I'm gonna add the final touches. I'm gonna add some powdered sugar and then I'll show you the final result. This actually also did yield 5 full pancakes, which again, these are pretty large pancakes, they're not tiny. So you can add more or less to that depending on what you're looking for. Okay, so I have my sifter again and I'm gonna just do the same process that I did with the flour and the sugar. This is just to kind of coat all over the pancakes, and I'll show you the final result. And that is kind of what it looks like finally done. Looks pretty appetizing if I do say so myself. You can obviously go a lot less on this if you want, or more depending on what your level of sweetness is. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. Alright, well thank you so much for watching my first video. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments. If you have any specific recipes that you want me to try out, or if you want me to develop a new one, also let me know in the comments. Alright, so stay tuned for my next video. It's going to be a review of HelloFresh from start to finish, if it's worth it or not, and I will have that up later this week. Alright, thanks, and I'll see you later.